YouTube. Today I'm fixing to smoke my first brisket flat. Now for those who don't know, the brisket comes from the chest or breast muscle of a cow. It's a hard-working muscle. And because it's hard-working, it requires a slow and low cook. Generally when you buy a brisket in the store, it's sold as what's called a packer brisket. It contains both the point and the flat. If you look at a cross-section of a brisket, you can easily see that it's essentially two muscles separated by a layer of fat called the decal. In this diagram, A is the flat and B is the point. Now to save money, some folks just buy the flat, and that's what I did. I picked up a 4.5 pound brisket flat from my local box store. The grain in a brisket flat runs in one direction, kind of down to this corner here. This flat, like all briskets, has a non-fat side and a fat side, as you can see. When it's ready to eat, you want to slice your brisket against the grain. So cutting off this corner here will let me know where to start slicing when this bad boy is done. Now on this non-fat side, there's quite a bit of silver skin. You can take as much time or as little time as you like with this, but try to remove as much as you can. Any rub you apply over silver skin will eventually render off, won't leave any of that great bark that makes brisket great. Now Franklin from Texas, yeah that one, recommends trimming the fat side of a brisket down so that the layer of fat is about 3/8 to 1/4 of an inch thick. So that's what I did here. The sheer thickness of fat on this thing was pretty surprising. I think I threw away at least $5 in fat. Now for rub, I started off with some of Weber's steak and chop seasoning. It's basically sea salt, garlic, onion powder, and some lemon peel. It's great on pork chops, by the way. Malcolm over at How to Barbecue Right likes to do a few layers of rub on his briskets, so that's what I decided to do. Now I know Franklin and pretty much all of Texas only uses salt and pepper, but hey, I'm not in Texas. The second layer of rub I'm using is Billy Bub's Texas Dry Rub. It's made close by here in Lewisburg, North Carolina. Finishing off this layer of rub on the recommendation of Malcolm is some Montreal steak seasoning. Of course, I flipped it over and repeated the process. Now, from what I found online, smoking a whole pack of brisket can take you well over 10 hours. And smoking a brisket flat can take somewhere just less than that. So not really knowing what I was dealing with here, I went ahead and just set my smoker up like I would for a small Boston butt. I was guessing maybe it could take 8 hours, but I didn't think it would take that long considering the flat was only 4 pounds. But like I said, I set it up like I would for a small Boston butt. You know, the minion method, and I threw on a good amount of wood on there. Just because briskets like Boston butts can handle a good amount of smoke. I think I got pecan and maybe hickory on there, I think. So I'm shooting for a pit temp of 250 to 275 degrees. And in order to do that, I'm running a dry water pan, but because I didn't want the brisket to sit there without any moisture in the air, I went and put an aluminum foil pan on that lower rack with a little beef broth and water. I kind of just thought it might help. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong. For a while now, I've been using a digital thermometer to help me and guide me with my pit and food temps. What I've come to find out, though, is that the pit temp reading can vary due to where you place the probe. This is due to the design of the WSM. You see, the heat comes off the coals and gets pushed out and around the water pan and climbs the walls of the smoker, taking the path of least resistance. Once at the dome, the heat meets the lower air temp, spins, thus creating a great indirect heated cooking environment. So because the heat climbs the walls, it creates a high heat ring around the outer edges of the cooking surface, while the center remains a low heat. Therefore, if you're forced to place your digital pit probe on the outer edges of the grate like me, you'll probably be reading a higher temperature than what your food may actually feel. That's why the dome thermometer, even though they can be off, are still good guide in my opinion. As you see here on my cook here, the dome is reading 230 and the probe is reading 270. My best guess is the brisket is feeling like 255. Alright, so my brisket flat has been on here just shy of 3 hours. Kind of surprised that I'm already at 165, at least what the thermometer says. Come to find out here in a moment or two, I'm actually not there yet. My Thermopen is reading 161, so I just decided to spray it down and wait till I got to 165. But this recipe that I'm following is not necessarily anything or any particular person's recipe. It's kind of concoction of things. Some input from Malcolm Reed over at How to Barbecue Right. A great channel, check it out. And also from the virtualweberbullet.com. It's a great website built around the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker. A lot of guys on there belong to it, a lot of great recipes, but they have one on here for a brisket flat, and that's kind of what I was going by, even though the brisket flat he's cooking was like an 8 or 9 pound brisket flat. And he used butcher paper, which I'm not using butcher paper because I didn't make the purchase. And this is my first brisket I've ever cooked, so I was a little hesitant to buy, spend 40, 50 bucks on a brisket flat. I decided to go this cheaper route, go with the 4-pound brisket flat, and try my luck out there. Anyway, so I'm at 165 now, as you can see. Went ahead and sprayed it down again with some of this beef stock, Worcestershire, and I think there's soy sauce in there. You want to make sure you wrap these briskets up tight. Make sure the probe in there. The first time I didn't have the probe in there, because without the probe, you're not going to know what temperature it's at. You have to keep poking it, and you're poking holes in it, and then you're letting a lot of that heat out. Anyways, I'm looking for an internal temperature of 201, which I'm at. So I decided to go ahead and pull it off, all wrapped up, covered with a towel, and put it in the smoke for about 2 hours. Alright, so this is the brisket flat. You can see it's got a little jiggle to it. I'm going to go ahead and slice it up. Remember, I know where I'm slicing because I made that cut in the beginning. And it should cut easily with a bread knife or a serrated knife. And you're looking for like pencil thick slices. There's not much of a smoke ring on this brisket flat. I was kind of surprised given all the wood that I gave it. But I guess getting a smoke ring on brisket can kind of be hard to do sometimes. Anyways, brisket should hold under its own weight. And it should pull apart with a slight tug, which this one did. So I only sliced up a little bit just for a meal for my wife and I. The rest I put in a Ziploc bag because the brisket will dry up pretty quick. All that juice running there, you can make a jus out of it if you like. And that's that. In the end, though, it was pretty good. I'm not a crazy brisket guy, but it turned out all right. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching, y'all.